Welcome to AI Assembled, the top AI news for small business. I'm Chris Doelle, and each week I bring you the most important AI developments that can transform your business. Let's dive into this week's top stories.
There are weeks when the news cycle tests whether your beliefs about a technology are as solid as you thought they were. This was one of those weeks. Let's start with a ruling that may be the most consequential thing to happen in AI law this year, even though it arrived as a quiet, two-word court order. On March 2nd, the United States Supreme Court declined to hear Thaler versus Perlmutter, the case where computer scientist Stephen Thaler had asked the federal courts to recognize his AI system, a program called the Creativity Machine, as the legal author of an artwork it had autonomously created. The lower courts had said no, the D.C. Circuit had said no, and now the Supreme Court said, "We are not even going to discuss it." What this means, practically and legally, is this. Under United States copyright law today, an AI cannot own its creative output. No AI-generated image, document, video, or piece of code can receive copyright protection unless a human author can be identified. The Copyright Office had already taken this position for years, and now that position is as settled as federal court decisions get, without a Supreme Court ruling explicitly saying so. The case itself was narrow. Dr. Thaler had specifically disclaimed any human creative involvement. He wanted to establish that the machine alone could hold authorship. That turned out to be a losing argument at every level. But what the courts explicitly left open is the harder question. How much human involvement is enough? If you write 600 carefully crafted iterative prompts to produce an image through Midjourney, does that qualify? A parallel case called Allen versus Perlmutter, currently pending in Colorado, will wrestle with exactly that question. For small business owners, the practical implications are immediate. Any content your business produces with AI, marketing copy, product images, generated video, customer-facing materials, does not automatically receive copyright protection. Your competitors can legally copy it. Your clients may not be getting exclusive rights to what they paid you to create. This is not a theoretical risk. It is the current state of the law.
That Supreme Court decision lands in the same week that two of the biggest names in AI made a move that a lot of people in the consulting world had convinced themselves would never happen. At least not like this. OpenAI formally announced what it is calling Frontier Alliances, multi-year partnerships with four of the largest consulting firms in the world: McKinsey & Company, Boston Consulting Group, Accenture, and Capgemini. The structure is specific and revealing. BCG and McKinsey are positioned as strategy partners. They help the C-suite of large companies figure out where and how to deploy AI agents at scale, working alongside OpenAI's own forward-deployed engineers. Accenture and Capgemini step in as the systems integrators, connecting OpenAI's Frontier platform into the actual data architecture, cloud infrastructure, and the tangled web of legacy software that most large enterprises actually run on. Anthropic is doing the same thing, just further along the timeline. The company had already struck deals with Accenture in December and Deloitte in October of last year, training 15,000 Deloitte staff on Claude and building certification programs for regulated industries, including financial services and healthcare. Now, here is the narrative that is worth sitting with for a moment. For 3 years, the dominant story in professional services was that AI would destroy consulting. The logic seemed airtight. If a model can synthesize data, generate strategic options, and produce a 100-page deck in 4 minutes, why would anyone pay $1,000 an hour for a senior partner to do the same thing over 6 weeks? That story, it turns out, was only half right. AI is changing what consultants do. It is not replacing them. It is recruiting them. What OpenAI and Anthropic have realized is that the technology itself is only 20% of the adoption problem. The other 80% is what consultants have always done: change management, stakeholder alignment, workflow integration, and getting the people inside a large organization to actually trust and use the system. For small business owners watching this unfold, the lesson is the same one we have covered in a different context before. The AI is the engine. Without the right human guidance and process, it sits in the garage.
While those two major stories were pulling most of the oxygen out of the room, a pair of model releases this week deserve your attention. Not because they are landmark events on their own, but because together they are rewriting the economics of what it costs to run AI at the developer level. On March 4th, Google released Gemini 3.1 Flash Lite. The name is deliberately unglamorous. This is not a prestige model. It is an economy model, designed for speed, built for volume, priced at 25 cents per million input tokens and $1.50 per million output tokens. That pricing makes it one of the cheapest capable models on the market. For businesses running applications that process hundreds of thousands of queries, customer support bots, document classification pipelines, automated email triage, the per-query cost difference between this model and a full-tier option is the difference between a sustainable business and an unsustainable one. 2 days later, on March 6th, OpenAI released GPT 5.4. This one sits at the premium end, not the budget end. The headline features are a 1 million token context window, matching Claude Opus 4.6, and what OpenAI is calling an extreme reasoning mode that allows the model to spend significantly more compute time on difficult problems. Think of it as a dial that can be turned up when the task is genuinely complex. Long, multi-step research tasks, extended coding sessions, analysis that runs for several hours without losing the thread. Early reports from API users also note improved reliability on professional documents, spreadsheets, and software environments. What these two releases tell you, taken together, is that the model market is maturing the way that any technology market matures. You now have economy options, mid-range options, and premium options, each priced and optimized for different workloads. A year ago, you more or less had to use whatever the frontier model was and pay frontier prices. That is no longer true. Small businesses have real choices, and making the right choice for your specific workflow now matters for your bottom line.
Now let's talk about two developments this week that are specifically aimed at small business owners. Not the enterprise market, not the Fortune 500, but the businesses that have anywhere from 1 to a few hundred employees and need tools that work without a dedicated IT team to configure them. The first is LinkedIn's new premium all-in-one subscription for small businesses, which launched this week at $99 per month. The pitch is consolidation, one subscription that combines the tools most relevant to selling, marketing, and hiring on the platform. AI guidance is baked into every section. It helps you optimize your content strategy, suggests who you should be reaching out to, guides you through job posting, and provides a centralized dashboard so you are not bouncing between Sales Navigator, Recruiter Lite, and the basic marketing tools. The monthly credits for boosting posts and job ads are included. At $99, it is more expensive than individual LinkedIn tools, but cheaper than the combined cost of the separate products it replaces. Whether it is worth it depends entirely on how actively you use LinkedIn as a business development channel. If you are a professional services firm, a B2B company, or anyone who uses LinkedIn for more than occasional updates, the consolidation value is real. If LinkedIn is an afterthought for your business, $99 a month is a lot of afterthought. The second development is more structural. Google Flow, the company's AI filmmaking and content creation platform, merged its Whisk and ImageFX tools into a unified workspace this week and opened that workspace to Google Workspace subscribers. What this means for small businesses is that if you already pay for a Google Workspace plan, the productivity suite most small businesses use for email, documents, and storage, you now have access to a serious AI video and image creation environment without an additional subscription. The quality of the output has been improving steadily since Flow launched. Being able to generate professional-grade marketing video content from simple text descriptions directly inside the productivity environment you already use is a genuine capability shift for small businesses that previously relied on expensive freelancers or design agencies for that work.
Before we get to this week's action steps, there are two more stories worth your attention. One that will accelerate how quickly AI reaches the operational core of most businesses, and one that is a warning worth taking seriously. First, the accelerant. Alibaba this week released the Qwen 3.5 small model series. 4 open-source models ranging from 800 million to 9 billion parameters, all available under Apache 2.0 licenses on Hugging Face. The practical upside: the 9 billion parameter model outperforms OpenAI's open-source reference benchmark on several third-party evaluations, and it can run on standard hardware, a well-configured laptop, a modest cloud instance, or an edge device. The context window on the 4 billion parameter model runs to 262,000 tokens. These are not toy models. They are capable, free to use, and deployable without an API subscription or ongoing usage fees. For small businesses that have been reluctant to build anything on top of cloud-based AI because of cost unpredictability or data privacy concerns, the Qwen 3.5 series changes the calculation. You can now run a genuinely capable AI model locally, on hardware you control, with no per-query charges and no data leaving your network. Now the warning. The Trump administration this week took a concrete step toward preempting state AI laws that it considers inconsistent with federal policy. S&P Global's intelligence unit reported that the process is now formally underway. The administration is building a list of state regulations it intends to challenge or override. This is relevant for small business owners because the current patchwork of state AI rules creates a confusing compliance landscape, especially if your business operates across multiple states or you deploy AI tools that interact with customers. Oregon's chatbot safety law, which passed the full state legislature this week and now heads to the governor's desk, requires AI chatbot platforms to implement specific safeguards for youth mental health, including regular reminders that users are speaking to an AI. It is the first major AI chatbot regulation to clear a state legislature in 2026, and it is now at the center of a federal versus state authority clash that is only going to intensify.
So, what does all of this add up to for a small business trying to figure out the right moves this week? Start with the copyright ruling, because it has the most immediate legal exposure. If your business creates AI-generated content, and by now most businesses do, even if only informally, you need to understand that none of it is automatically protected by copyright. That means your marketing team's AI-generated ad copy, your website's AI-written product descriptions, your AI-produced social images. Anyone can copy them. The solution is not to stop using AI. That would be like deciding not to use a word processor because someone could copy your document. The solution is to make sure there is meaningful human creative involvement in the final output: editing, curation, selection, arrangement. Document that process so you can demonstrate authorship if you ever need to. On the consulting story, the insight for small businesses is not that you need to hire McKinsey. It is that the pattern the big AI labs are following Pairing technology with human deployment expertise is the same pattern you should be following at your own scale. Whether that means working with a local technology consultant, joining a peer community like Business Success Academy, or simply investing time in learning the implementation side of the tools you're already paying for, the point is consistent. The tools are ready. The gap is almost always human. For those who have been looking for a way into AI without ongoing cloud subscription costs, the Qwen 3.5 release this week is the most accessible on-ramp the open source community has produced to date. On the LinkedIn subscription, evaluate it by what you actually use. If you are already active on the platform, the consolidation is worth the price. If not, it is not. On Google Flow, if you are a Workspace subscriber, log in this week and run one experiment. Take your most recent marketing campaign and describe what you wanted to communicate. See what the tool gives you. That one experiment will tell you more about whether this is useful for your business than anything else could. The AI landscape this week is more practical, more accessible, and more legally complicated than it was 7 days ago. That is a summary worth sitting with.
That's it for this week's AI Assembled, the top AI news for small business. If you found this valuable, share it with a fellow business owner. If you want a hands-on group that you can work with on your specific AI needs, consider joining Business Success Academy at freshmediaworks.com/BSA. Until next week, keep innovating and keep it real.